always been the guy who said, work from home, right? Yeah, okay, yeah, I know. You're gonna go golf, you're gonna go shop, you're taking off somewhere, you're leaving early for the weekend. And I was always the guy who kind of mistrusted the notion of work from home. I just always said, well, just call it what it is, just take a day off, right? But that was sort of short-sighted thinking.
All right, everyone, welcome back to SalesBiz. I appreciate you taking the time. Today, my guest is originally in the San Francisco Bay Area, coming from a creative background, but has extensive knowledge in the biz world and business development. Excited to have him on board and share his insight, Mr. Derick Daily. Derrick, welcome.
Thanks, Mike. It's good to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
Appreciate you taking the time, bud.
Of
So
course.
you and I are both in the San Francisco Bay Area, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's just go ahead and start with your background. How is it that you started in the design world, and how did you pivot into becoming a C-level?
Yeah, sure, man. So I started design in college. I went into college thinking I was going to be like an art major. I was in high school designing t-shirts. I was really into skateboarding, so I was really into skateboarding culture. So that's what really got me into like graphic design, just deck graphics and t-shirts and whatnot. And so at the time, I sort of thought it was really going to be a career in art. And then getting into college, I kind of found out really quickly that I was actually more suited for a design background, because while art is cool, and I think that I'll always have kind of a art background in my history, there's also the aspect of just making a career out of something. And I found out that it's real easy to get a degree in art in college and be a struggling artist. And that really wasn't what I was looking for. So I pivoted to design. And when I was in school, that's when basically the birth of the internet, I guess, as it were, and I fell in love with the medium. And now 20 years later, I've built and sold an agency. I currently, run an agency, and I've been doing the kind of design agency biz for that long.
So when it came to art originally, were you drawing stuff? Were you playing on the computer? Were you like building sculptures? What were you actually focused on?
Yeah, no, a little bit of everything actually. It's funny you mentioned sculptures, just because when I was in high school, I liked ceramics, and so I was actually doing some stuff there, but that was just dabbling. No, I was more of kind of a hand drawing kind of illustrator type artist. My best friends growing up, we were all kind of into comic books at the same time. And we used to, 12, 13 years old, having sleepovers, and we were drawing our own comics, and we were all obsessed with comics. And so I guess kind of like graphic artist, sort of, before I really knew what the term was, I was going towards that kind of background. And then
Gotcha.
yeah. I mean, a little bit of kind of all the mixed media, but graphic arts is really where it's at. And I used to go to my mom's office actually, and she had a computer. We didn't have one at home at the time, and so I remember like I would like Xerox things, and then I would like draw on top of them and layer stuff. So it was kind of natural progression from that age into actually computer graphic design in college.
Awesome. So how did you drop that brush or pen or whatever it is that you were doing and pick up a computer? What did that transition period look like?
It's weird. I think it was all just timing. I mean, like I said, I really gravitated towards just the graphic angle, and I think once the desktop computer just became a much bigger thing, and I got in early learning Photoshop, teaching myself Photoshop and Illustrator and all the things, and I realized that it was a much more quicker, cleaner, efficient process than the drawing. And I was really doing things a lot by hand, and I've always had kind of an impatient side to me. And so for me, the computer it was a means of getting those ideas out a lot faster. It was a way of just producing things quicker. So that's kind of the natural evolution. And then, like I said, in college, kind of at the end of high school, got my own desktop computer, my first Mac, and just kind of took off from there.
Gotcha. Do you remember your first client that you landed design wise?
Oh, wow. I don't remember exactly. When I left college, I actually went to work for a startup company that was really one of the early pioneers in interactive advertising. What would eventually become interactive advertising. So it was like sort of traditional advertising, but then meets digital. People didn't still understand meant. So it was really making gift banners. And so I'll tell you some of the earliest memories that I have of the first clients, not that I landed, but the company that I was working for was Office Depot, OfficeDepot.com. They just rolled out, and we were just making a ton of banner ads for Office Depot. They were one of the early folks to do stuff in that space. And then there was some startup companies. There was a lot of, in San Francisco, 97, 98. There was a lot of startups. So we were doing some interactive stuff for them. But then after that, I ended up falling in with another interactive agency, and Levi's was their big client. Levi's
Nice.
was trying to be an early pioneer in the music space. And so they had this whole tour where they had sponsored Christina Aguilera. And I actually ended up getting to make this like kind of cool Levi's music site. And then D'Angelo was part of that tour, the Voodoo tour, and they were sponsoring him with the clothing. And so that's when I got into like flash design. And that's that's when I really was like, okay, I don't want to make web banners anymore. Banners is not where I want my creative vision to go. So became a lot more immersive, interactive media, with Macromedia Flash, and really being able to kind of take interactivity to another level.
Yeah. I remember right after getting out of college, I was trying to figure out where to take my sales career, and I tried getting into advertising. I remember it was really, really hard. It was really competitive, not just from a design standpoint, but the sales aspect of it, just to come in and start buying people coffee and really being their subordinate and whatnot. But it was really tough to get into. Is that some of it what you saw as well?
What I've seen is like just sort of like the industry has had like peaks and valleys, right? And I've lived through and experienced and worked through the two major .com boom and busts, right? Like
Right.
1999 and 2000 was the first .com boom. Everybody was just investing money. The internet was like this gold rush, being in California, it was like, holy crap. And I think people were coming from all over the world, all over the United States, and they were coming to San Francisco because it was kind of the Mecca. And so I think there was a lot of kids that were fresh out of school and anyone could get a job. And it was just money being thrown left and right. But when that bottomed out in like 2001, then everything pulled back and it became a lot harder, I think, to get jobs in this space.
Right.
And there was sort of a lot more, I don't know, they were just really looking for people that, they were just really committed to it and really kind of understood. And I think it just took a little while to regrow back up. And I think, I went through two different cycles of that where I worked with a lot of biz dev people. I worked with a lot of salespeople. And so I saw two models. I saw models where agencies just tried to do the really kind of traditional classic, like cold calling, reaching out, whatever leads they could get. And these folks typically would just kind of sell whatever services. You want a website, we're selling you a website. And the problem was, they didn't really fully understand it in a lot of cases. They were just kind of working on a commission, and it was like a real scattershot approach. And then the other agencies that I worked with realized that it was more that your biz dev really had to be an internal part of your company. They really had to fully understand the offering in order to really make those contacts. And it really just became a thing. I think, especially the second time around, the nature of like a cold call and just cold reach out. And I'm sure you see it today. I see it all the time on LinkedIn. I get people who just hit me up like all the time. And I'm just like, come on, this isn't validated. No, when they're really trying to straight up sell me something. And the funniest part is, I can't stand when somebody tries to sell me something that my agency already does. So that's where I know there's been no research. If you want to try to sell me something, that's fine. Sell me something that's a value add. Come at me with something that's really going to help change my business. Don't come at me saying, you're going to offshore the development and whatever you think that I pay to do web development at a company, you're going to undercut that, because it just shows you just don't really know my business. So,
Right.
but yeah, sales in this business, it can be tricky, just like any business. It can be tough to get into. I just think you really have to know the offer and know what you're selling.
Yeah, I hear you. So let's dive into it, man. I'd love to hear more about the Savage Bureau. That name alone just kind of attracted me. Like, oh, I really have to get to know this guy. But yeah, outside of us being SF natives, I grew up in San Francisco. I don't know if we had a chance to talk about that yet, but from elementary all the way to SF State, just kind of came here when I was 9 and kind of stayed.
Nice.
But tell me about your background in SF and how you ended up in the Savage Bureau.
Yeah. So yeah, I actually grew up in Marin, and I went to high school in Marin. So I'm not born, but raised, I think, since the time I was 5 years old in the Bay Area. And just you're that close proximity, you just kind of fall in love with the city. You fall in love with San Francisco, and it's just it's an inspiring
We're
place.
we're a dying breed, Derek.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm starting to get that as well.
And
But
even with
yeah,
this exodus right now too, I feel like we're
yeah.
just going to be even more of a dying breed now. It's getting really
Yeah,
bad, but
no, yeah, I am. I'm seeing that. But my affinity for the Bay Area kept me local for school, and so there was really, when I was done with college, UC Davis, there was really no question in my mind that I would be moving to San Francisco to kind of build my career here. So as I mentioned, 1997, first interactive agency, freelanced for a few years, and then in 2001, as I mentioned, there was that .com total fallout, total bust. There was no jobs to be had. I mean, nobody could get a job. So with a couple good friends, I started an agency in 2001, and we said, hey, we understand interactive, we understand pure digital play. It's not going anywhere. This was a bump in the road.
right,
And so we built an agency, just, blood, sweat, and tears. We partnered with some traditional advertising agencies because still a time when they didn't quite get it, and so we would kind of augment their services. And so I was fortunate enough to build that company to over 45 million revenue annually. We were or sorry 10 million revenue annually, 45 people. Don't let me get the numbers too twisted, but still a good numbers.
still good
And
numbers.
we yeah and we were fortunate enough in 2008 we were acquired by a global ad network. The Havas Corporation at the time was called Euro RSCG. But yeah, so 2008 they completed the acquisition, and then I went to work basically for Havas, and we shepherded that interactive agency into what is now the San Francisco Village, is what they call them now, villages in the Havas network. This is San Francisco Village of the network. That's my original company, and we did a lot of work in the interactive space, in the gaming, 2K games, Sony Entertainment. We did a lot of work for them as well. And then Genentech, a lot of it was kind of a really big mix, but we were in the healthcare pharma space as well.
Nice.
So after I rode that out, just life changes. I was ready to do something else. Took a few years off. Worked for a few other folks, helping them build a UX shop in San Francisco. Also recently acquired. That was about 6 years ago. A shop called Spring Studio, and I was the creative director there. Helped take them from 10 people to 40 people, and then a global bank bought them. And so at that point in time, a lot of people who know me personally were like, hey, when are you starting your next gig? But I just had my second child. And so I was kind of taking it easy. I'd been through 10 years of building an agency, said I needed some time. But then after, doing a stint with someone else, it was just time for me to do my own thing again. So 2016, we started the Savage Bureau. I like that the name grabbed you. That was a big part of why we called it that. My partner and I, we had a list of 450 names. We spent about a month doing naming exercises, and there's three of us, so it's really hard to agree, especially when it's something that's so close and personal to you guys. But we finally settled on the Savage Bureau because we wanted people to ask. We wanted people to say, "What does that mean?" It's memorable, and it makes you wonder why call it that. And so that was a big part of it. There's a whole lore behind it, but really it's really philosophically how we kind of approach our creativity. We call it Savage Bureau because it's the juxtaposition of this idea of just savagery and just passion for what we do. And then Bureau, it's the office side. We're also civilized enough to get your project done and to get it done well, and get it done on budget. So it's both sides. So
We're savages, but we clean up well. I get it.
that's exactly right, Mike. That's exactly right.
Congrats on the
And
kid, by
that's
the way, again.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, he's 10 years old now, so I mean, I'm
Oh,
I'm
wow.
dating myself left and right. But yeah, I got a couple of them right now. They're upstairs plugged into the computer playing games, so I could have time to do this with you.
I haven't heard anyone scream or shout or beg for life yet, so I think we're good.
Yeah.
Uh, so congrats on that. I mean, that it captured my attention.
Thanks.
I'm sure it's grabbing attention from everywhere. Do you have a specific niche or do you specific target market that you're working with constantly?
We kind of found ourselves in commercial real estate, commercial and residential real estate. To be totally honest, the previous company we've been at, we were doing a lot in the financial sector. So Charles Schwab and American Express, like I said, that company was also acquired by a bank. And I think after, 5.5, 6 years working in the financial space, we were just ready to just pivot and do something totally different. I mean, it was
Right.
cool making next gen tools. Those were great clients and a lot of rewarding work, but we were ready for something different. And then just as you know, sometimes life just takes you on a course that you couldn't have even imagined. Good friend of mine said, "Hey, I work for a 3D or a visualization studio. We're the best in our business, and we do all these visualizations for these big commercial, office buildings, towers, business parks. We do really cool work, and we also do residential." I said, "They're always asking us for branding. We don't do that." And he said, "So, I know you're starting this business. Do you want to do branding in this space?" Yes. Easy answer. Yes, sure. So, like anything, you jump in with enthusiasm and passion, and just it was. I think it was really easy for us to look at the space and see an opportunity because a lot of people who we see who are now our competitors, they sort of were cookie cuttering it. It was kind of a one size fits all. We started to get to know the other shops that we were competing with just because all of their work was kind of similar. And it was kind of one of those things where coming into it, it was like you hired this shop if you wanted this look, if you wanted this approach. And, a part of our original tactic was to come and say, look, we don't think one size fits all. All projects aren't the same. There are certainly going to be similarities, but we don't need to create a playbook that we just follow over and over again and just rehash what we've done before. So, I think that
Right.
that positioning and that strategy and that approach really served us well in terms of, entree into new clients.
Got it. And how many
So
employees do you have right now with Savage?
right now we're 8 folks. We're eight full time. We're obviously with COVID, we're all remote. We had a beautiful office on Second Street in San Francisco, but as luck would have it, it was a 3-year lease that happened to come up in the end of May. And when that happened, with the state of the world, it didn't make sense, and we adjusted pretty well as a company to the remote work. And so we recently actually just brought in a couple more folks, contractors, to take on the work that we've had for the end of this year. And we're looking at a few new recs for next year. So things have been
Gotcha.
going really well. Yeah, things have been,
Awesome.
despite it all, things are going well.
And I know real estate's pretty hot right now still. I mean, given consider COVID and everything that's been going on, prices are still continuing to go up, sales are being made. How has that impacted your business? It sounds like maybe not, but how has COVID impacted you? And do you see anything possibly shifting in 2021?
Um, yes. So COVID affected us like I think most people. When we went into the initial thing, there was a lot of just wait and see. And I think it was kind of like holding your breath, right? So I think we effectively left our office in March. And when we left, it was sort of this like, oh, now what, right? And then we just kind of had to buckle down and hold on. And so, as you would expect, things slowed down for us until the summer. And then what I really saw happen was I saw stuff pick back up because, people there is this exodus, there's a lot more inventory, but what that created was more competition for when we come out of it. And so a lot of our clients said, look, we know right now that, we're not going to be able to fill a lot of these spaces, but if we get our ducks in a row and we're prepared over the competition to provide an advantage. And so a lot of them were talking about strategies about like, right, how do you prepare for the post COVID era? Like, and so our
Right.
job is to help them message that, right? They're working on all their office spaces. They're working on, implementing all of the best practices and basically rearranging floor plates and the whole way, the look and feel of an interior, and coming up with these new features. And so we've had to partner with them to communicate that and to help them with the messaging and whatnot. So while there was an initial slowdown, then it ramped right back up, and there was the, okay, well, we got to be ready. Like, this is a time, we know it's slow right now, but we should be focusing our energies right now on, really creating all of the marketing materials that we're going to need when we come out of it. So
Yeah.
slowed down, ramped up. And, I personally am really optimistic because I think the clients that invested in that, you know, They are going to be the ones that are most ready to reap the benefits when it starts again. I know it's going to be weird in SF, but I think, vaccine pending in this summer, I think we should start to see kind of a return, kind of, fall of next year of 2021. And, I don't know about the entire development pipeline. A lot of our clients actually hire us before the buildings are built. And so we're doing a lot of, brand development before they even break ground. That has certainly slowed down. Now we're doing a lot more like reactive, actually marketing for available inventory. So that's where it shifted a little. But there's still a lot of residential in the pipeline. And I think people are always going to need housing. The Bay Area, as you know, for someone who lives here, still a hot market. I mean, the sales are through the roof, home prices. Apartments have come down. But what that means is when it comes down, there's more inventory. They've got to invest more in the marketing, right? And more in the, more in what we do and what we can help with. So yeah, we've been busy. I would say, right? Summer started the boost. We got a little lull, and then as soon as we kicked into fall, it's been through the roof.
Awesome. Congratulations, man. I mean, it's kind of hard these days, with everyone.
Appreciate that.
Just keeping the morale up, let alone trying to thrive and grow their business. Which brings me to my question of, you mentioned a little bit about marketing, Derrick, but what other advice would you have for a small business owner or even an entrepreneur that's struggling right now to put food on the table?
Oh man, what advice? Well, one of the things that the whole thing taught me in the pandemic is you have to just adjust your perception of what is really vital to your company. So, the office space that I referred to, it's a really great example of that. And I used to think that in order for us to be a legitimate, like real company, that an office was vital. And now I realize that that's actually not the case. I'm seeing more and more agencies in our space. Some of the agencies that we look up to, that we partner with, that are a little further ahead on their development journey, are all in the same boat and giving up office spaces and going more remote. And what that does is that really changes not only your opportunity, because you tend to have an office and then you tend to think a little bit locally, right? So once you don't, it kind of forces you to think outside of that norm. And it just forces you to really kind of reevaluate things that you thought were true. And maybe they're not, because you just based that on, old thinking. And so for me, one of the biggest things is I always felt like that office was that validator. And it turns out that's not the validator. The validator is the great work that we do and the relationships that we build. So the bigger insight there too is, this is going to be a year for us in the history, as we're embarking on our 5th year of business. We're not making, our gross isn't going to be as much as it has in the past, but profitability is higher than it's ever been, because by just not having an office, that's 10 grand a month off the bottom line, just like lopped off. So again, I felt like going into this, we struggled when we started. We shared space in our partner's office, and we were in a back little office because we had to build enough of a nut to get out there and do the security deposit and get our own space. And it comes with a lot of different baggage. And I thought that was essential. And now I realize, it's actually not. So
Got it.
I would say it's just taking a hard look at all those things that you believe are true and reevaluating them with a new lens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, we're kind of blessed in that regard. Growing up in San Francisco, work from home has been around in my ears since I was in high school. Like, oh, my dad's working from home, or this is working from home. So maybe it might be a little different than in other states, but us in tech capital of the world here. But that said, profitability is very important in business, but I want to talk about productivity. Because right now what I'm seeing is, working from home, my dog, you're probably hearing is barking right now. You got the kids running around doing distance learning. Wife is probably home too, if we're blessed to have one. But how has that shifted in your industry? Because you sound excited about it, but is that the case with all the other employees and everyone else you're seeing around you?
Well, a funny thing is I used to be the guy who I hated work from home personally. A lot of it was sort of for the reasons that you mentioned. Is there's a lot of stuff going on at home. There's a lot of distractions. I'm also the type of person who just generally needs to be doing 3 or 4 things at once just to be productive on any one thing. I like to switch gears really quickly. And I was worried twofold. Is one, that when I really needed to focus at home, I wouldn't be able to. And two, I would just get distracted doing home shit all of the time.
Right.
Both of those are sort of true. They've bared out to be sort of true. But to be totally honest, is I've really learned to manage it into my workflow. And I've really, again, re-examining these things is I was addicted to the commute. I didn't mind it. I built a network around the commute. You know, I had my routine in the morning. I had people that I ride the ferry into San Francisco because I live in the East Bay. So I'd have this morning ritual that would take me into the city with a certain group of people, and we would shoot the shit in the morning. And it was sort of networking and kind of just hanging out with friends. And then on the way home, it was a whole different thing. And I was sort of just addicted to it and just felt like that's the way it had to be. But now this has forced this new reality. And now, again, with shifting your own perception of things, you just really need to find, you know, the ability to structure it so that it works for you in those same ways. It's still satisfying in those ways. And so I've managed to do that. Regarding other people, I was the quintessential. I've always been the guy who said, work from home, right? Yeah, okay, yeah, I know you're gonna go golf, you're gonna go shop, you're taking off somewhere, you're leaving early for the weekend. And I was always the guy who kind of mistrusted the notion of work from home. I just always said, well, just call it what it is, just take a day off, right? But that was sort of short-sighted thinking. And again, that was me, you know, putting my own thoughts on it. And now what I've come to realize is the first 6 to 8 weeks, it was challenging, but we're lucky enough in our field that to make a living in front of a computer, right? And by generating work product, it's all done on the computer. So by that same virtue, all the tools that we have for productivity, in some ways, really keep you in touch with other people and a flow that's almost the same as being able to kind of look across the room and see someone else. You know, if you have ongoing dialogue, we're big Slack users. So Slack is everything for us. And so as they've evolved that tool as well, it's you start chatting with someone and, you know, you say, hey, you know what? Okay, we could type this out, but just click the call, we get on the thing. You can draw right there on the screen. And, you know, we're sharing kind of notes and ideas just in a split second. And in some ways, I've actually found that it kind of is, it's more focused, because when someone is tuned in and right there in front of the computer and they expect that two-way interaction, you know that they're engaged. Whereas before, sometimes someone could be zoning out in the corner, they got their headphones on, you don't know what they're working on, they got something up, but maybe they don't. And so it comes down to trust, really, and you know, keeping someone engaged and checking in with them and making sure that you've established good relationship with your employees and your managers are doing a great job. And I feel like we've done a good job. I feel like, I mean, we're a small enough crew. We're not a huge company, so we're a small enough crew that everyone is very communicative and really engaged. And so, yeah, then it's about trust and letting them get their stuff done. And as long as people are getting their work done, that's what matters.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've played ping pong with my colleagues because there's a ping pong table in the room, or, you know, grab some water, or maybe taking a quick stroll around the block. Those things were healthy from a collaboration standpoint, maybe getting fresh air. But I found myself, and I was with that guy, by the way. I hated working from home. Anytime an SDR, someone told me they're working from home, it's like, oh yeah, okay, cool story.
Mm-hmm.
But now, you know, I've grown to like it, actually. That's why I asked this question of many entrepreneurs is, how do you feel about this? It is a transition, I think, in our eyes. You seem to be that guy that likes to be out there shaking hands and whatnot too.
Yeah.
I'm definitely there as well, but it's grown on me. And
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of scared that I'm never going to leave home anymore. So how do you feel about that? Like, you know, do you feel like we're stuck at home forever now, or do you actually feel like you will come back to an office eventually and then continue growing your business that way? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, you know, it's a good question. And, you know, I was talking to my partners about this the other day, and, you know, because of this savings on the bottom line and because of the transition, I think for us in the immediate future, and by the immediate future, I mean, I don't see us back in an office in 2021 at all. You're right. I did like to be out there. I like to be meeting with clients. In fact, a big part of the reason that our office was where it was is because all of our clients were in like a 7-block radius, right? So we do work with Salesforce, and our office was less than a 5-minute walk from Salesforce. And so we just go right down to the tower. And I've always tell all of my team, my creative director, my tech director, it's like, look, if we can get an in-person meeting for these key meetings, that's so much more valuable than doing a remote meeting, because you're building a relationship every time you're doing it. And when you're building that relationship, then you're automatically increasing the chances of repeat business. And I'm sure you're in sales, Mike. So the best business is repeat business, right? Like there's nothing, you don't want to build your business on the back of continuing to just get new clients and turning them over. And that's one of the things actually that I learned from building my first agency to my second agency. And a big thing when we went into this is I just said, look, I don't care if we only have 4 or 5 clients, as long as those are the same 4 or 5 clients that we have for the duration of our business, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years down the road, because that means we're doing something right. And if we're really fostering and growing that relationship, then each year we're growing the revenue, the project size, because we're earning more trust. And as we earn more trust, we can do bigger and better things with our clients. And so that's kind of borne
Yep.
out. And it was that relationship. I think part of it is in person. But now we have to adjust. And so what I do see for myself personally is, and I'm looking forward to this. I think it's down the line, but I see this next fall. I see a lot more day trips for me into San Francisco. I see co-work spaces being a big thing, meeting my team maybe before a pitch. Because I do think that by the end of next year, I do think that there will be clients that will be ready to have agencies come in and to meet, firsthand, because I do think there still is value in that. And whether or not that means we end up getting an office space or not, I think remains to be seen. But I do want to be out there again and putting in that face time and getting, one-on-ones at a client's office. I just may now depend on them to provide the office.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're not upselling, you're not climbing up. I mean, that's just as easy as it is in sales. And if you're selling a product that does not have any upsell strategy, you're probably selling the wrong product. So
Exactly. And that's why
I
we got to continue to offer more and more services, growing our services.
absolutely. And last question for you, Derrick. Where do you see Savage growing in the next 3 to 5 years? I mean, outside of the pandemic and everything, what would the ideal be for you to have happen within your business right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I've always looked at it in that time frame. But this year forced everything to be a lot, just shrink that time frame. So, coming into January, we had, come off of looking at planning from the previous year, and we were looking at the future year. We were trying to make big plans for what 2020 was going to be. And then once this whole thing hit in March, it was like all those plans just out the door, like all of them, just because you went into survival mode, right? I mean, all of
Right.
us, going into survival mode changes everything. So now we're getting back to it. And actually, my partners and I are actually doing our planning. We're wrapping up as we get into the end of the year, early December, to plan for 2021 and the goals that we have. And so for us, really, the goal is to actually continue to grow the team in the short term. And basically, we're keeping it simple, to grow the team and grow the revenue, grow the client base. And so it's not really more complicated than that. When we started, we sort of looked at a timeline for some maybe potential acquisition at some point. And then now we've basically reframed those expectations. And to be quite frank, like, I'm much happier now just building a company that will support the partners and our lifestyles, as well as, reward our employees and be able to give them competitive, job packages to the big boys, which is, it's not easy in this network. We're competing. Any creative agency is competing with Facebooks and Googles and the biggest companies in the world, and they offer packages that are ridiculous. So you have to offer cool work, great lifestyle, great benefits, and all the things, and the camaraderie of a team. So we just got to keep working on that.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm rooting for you, brother. I know it's
Thank
tough
you.
times right now in San Francisco. We got a huge exodus in California. We got the
Yep.
pandemic. We got the New Year coming up. It seems like the odds are stacking against us, but I feel like the guys that always want to make it are the guys that make it, and you seem like one of those guys.
Yeah, I feel like this is just another one of those things, right? Like I said,
Exactly.
that the 2.com booms and busts, and it's just, I never thought I would be living through a pandemic. I never thought that we would experience something like this, but here it is. And, hopefully we're seeing the end of it. There's signs of things and major change, and the vaccine news is encouraging. And look, San Francisco is not going anywhere, right? There's certain iconic cities. There may be an exodus right now, but what I see that is in some places is it's sort of like a cleanse, right? In the .com booms and busts. I mean, you've been here since you were a little kid. So, you've seen San Francisco, you've seen the ups and the downs. And when you love the city, when you love it, you love it and you stick with it no matter what. So
you ride through it. Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, Derrick, appreciate you taking the time. Ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen,
Mike.
Derick Daily from the Savage Bureau. I'm going to drop a link in here, drop some comments. Please like, subscribe, share. And Derrick, appreciate you taking the time. I hope I see you out in those streets soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Take care, bud.